In 1992, a wildfire swept across a hillside in southern France. When the flames died down and the firefighters left, the charred ground revealed bones. Small ones, curved, with claws. Nobody expected to find that there. These bones belonged to a creature nobody knew existed. And because it only showed up thanks to the fire, they named it Pyroraptor olympius, the fire thief of Olympus. Today, we're going to meet this dinosaur, see where it lived, and, of course, recreate the whole thing, right here in Jurassic World Evolution 3. Quick heads up, I'm not a paleontologist. What's coming is the result of a lot of research, but with creative license. If you're the kind of person who knows every bone of every animal, relax. The goal here is to tell a good story about a dinosaur that's been unfairly forgotten. Let's go. Pyroraptor was small, like really small, between 1.5 and 2.5 meters long, depending on which study you trust. To give you an idea, it's roughly the size of a big wolf, but with feathers and retractable claws on the second toe. Those sickle-shaped curved claws are the trademark of its family, the dromaeosaurids, the same crew as Velociraptor, Deinonychus, Utahraptor. By the way, if I say raptor to you, you probably think of the Velociraptor from Jurassic Park. Forget that image. The real Velociraptor was the size of a turkey. Pyroraptor was even smaller than that giant green thing from the movies. And here's an interesting plot twist. More recent studies suggest Pyroraptor might not even be a traditional dromaeosaurid. It may belong to a related group called Unenlogines, with origins down in the southern hemisphere, in Gondwana. Meaning this little guy might have ancestors that crossed pieces of ocean to reach Europe. Hard mode paleontology detective work. So, the CV. Small, agile, almost certainly covered in feathers. Yes, feathers, not lizard-style scales. And it lived in packs. Now, hold on to this. 72 million years ago, Europe didn't exist as we know it. No France, no Spain, no continent. What there was a bunch of islands scattered across a warm sea called the Tethys. One of those islands was Ibero-armorica, the piece of land that's now roughly southern France and northern Spain. Subtropical climate, seasonal rainfall, coastal forests, floodplains. It was Pyroraptor's paradise. And this is where my part comes in. When I went to recreate its habitat in Jurassic World Evolution 3, I wanted to capture that Cretaceous island vibe. Water everywhere, open woodland with patches of dense forest, giant ferns, pointed conifers. Not that postcard Mediterranean we know today. The biome I picked was the Mediterranean one from the Island Generator. Not because it's scientifically perfect, but because it visually delivers the right climate. Conifers to stand in for the Araucariaceae of the time. Tree ferns for that prehistoric understory feel. Cycads scattered around the ground. And by the way, that grass you see isn't actually grass. Grasses only really take over the world long after the dinosaurs. Just imagine it's a layer of low ferns and primitive flowering herbs. And this is where Pyroraptor earns its keep. As small as it was, Pyroraptor wasn't the apex predator of ibero-armorica. That job belonged to Archovinator, an abelosaurid about 5 meters long, a distant cousin of Carnotaurus. Think of Pyroraptor as the wolf and Archovinator as the bear. So how did this little guy survive? Ambush, sharp eyes, living in groups. And today, in our enclosure, I gave it a prey that fits the bill perfectly, the Hypsilophodon. A small European ornithopod, also Cretaceous, from what is now southern England. The real neighbors of Pyroraptor were called Rabdodon and Zalmoxes, but those aren't in the game, and the Hypsilophodon is an excellent ecological stand-in. And honestly, look at the size of this thing. Knee-high, 20 kilos. This is exactly the kind of prey small dromaeosaurids actually hunted in real life. Not the giant game Hollywood shows you, but small herbivores you could pin down with 1 foot. The Hypsilophodons are calm, eating, no idea what's coming. And what's coming is this. Look at that. Now, nobody saw a Pyroraptor hunt 72 million years ago. But fossils found in groups and the behavior of modern birds, which are literally surviving dinosaurs, suggest small dromaeosaurids weren't lone wolves either. And that famous sickle claw on the second toe? It wasn't for ripping. Studies show it worked like a hook. The predator pins the prey down and bites. Less Edward Scissorhands, more cat with its claw dug in. So what about babies? The truth is, we know almost nothing. No Pyroraptor nests have been found. No eggs, no juveniles. What we know comes from close relatives. Dromaeosaurids probably nested on the ground, laid a clutch of several eggs, and, here's a sweet detail, the parents may have brooded the eggs by sitting on them, just like modern birds. Famous fossils of other feathered theropods have been found preserved in exactly that pose. Group life, which the game simulates pretty well, probably involved collective care of the young and territorial defense. How much these animals actually cooperated when hunting is still debated. Some think it was opportunistic. Some defend real coordination. The truth is probably somewhere in between. Looking at this little guy, big eyes, upright posture, feathers, it's hard not to see him as basically a prehistoric bird with a Napoleon complex and a knife on its feet. Let's talk about appearance, because here's the catch. Everything science actually knows about Pyroraptor fits in a paper bag. A few claws, arm bones, teeth, and bits of spine. That's it. The color, the feather pattern, the exact size, it's all reconstruction based on relatives. What we can say confidently is, it had feathers, like every dromaeosaurid preserved with soft tissue. It was bipedal, long stiff tail for balance, and the famous sickle claw, razor sharp. The design the game chose, short feathers, earthy tones, is a reasonable guess based on forest camouflage. Could it have been blue? Sure. Could it have had peacock-style display feathers? Also possible. Nobody will ever know. And that's why reconstructing dinosaurs is so much fun. We work from fragments, fill the gaps with logic, and every new discovery can flip everything upside down. If 5 years from now they find out Pyroraptor was purple with yellow polka dots, I'll come back and remake the video. Pyroraptor is one of those dinosaurs nobody talks about, and that deserves the spotlight. Small, clever, a survivor of a Europe that turned into islands, and one that only revealed itself to science because of a fire. If you enjoyed this trip through Cretaceous ibero-armorica, hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments which forgotten dinosaur you want to see next. I've got a list. See you next time. And remember, if you ever see smoke coming out of the woods, it might just be a Pyroraptor coming out of hiding.